All right. So, in the previous video, we went ahead and we took a look at the parabola. It was a bit of an introduction to graphing these quadratics, and um, and so what I want to do now is I kind of want to go over this next step on how to graph them specifically. Now, these are going to be more of sketches, right? These are going to be sketches, and there are key features that we went over, which were the vertex of a quadratic, the axis of symmetry. There was a direction that it was pointing, whether it was pointing up or down. We determined whether there was a minimum or a maximum. And the intercepts, y-intercepts and x-intercepts, we saw sometimes there weren't any x-intercepts, sometimes the y-intercepts weren't visible. But let's go ahead and let's take a dive into graphing quadratics in factored form. Okay, so here I have y is equal to x plus 1 times x plus 3. Now, this right here is in factored form, and it's screaming at me to go ahead and solve this quadratic, right? So the first thing I want to find are the x-intercepts, right? X-intercepts, I think if it's in factored form, we can set this equation here, y equals x minus 1 times x plus 3. I want to find the value of x when y equals 0. Okay, so for this situation here, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and take my um, this quadratic here in factored form and set that equal to 0. Okay, set that equal to 0. And I'm going to solve this quadratic just like we've done before. X minus 1 equals 0, or x plus 3 equals 0. And this is going to help me find my x-intercepts. These are my zeros. These are my roots. We call roots. So I'm going to go ahead and add 1 right here. Add 1 to both sides. Subtract 3, subtract 3. These cancel. X equals 1, or x equals negative 3. Okay, now that I have that there, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and plot my x-intercepts. So that's 1, 0, and negative 3, 0. All right, I'm going to go ahead and plot those points on my graph, my xy chart, or excuse me, my xy, or my Cartesian plane. So 1, 0 is right there, and negative 3 zeros right here. Okay, and in our previous video, we also talked about that the symmetry in these parabolas, right? And if I take a look at these points here, they are 4 units away. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we need some symmetry. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my axis of symmetry, which is right between my two zeros, my two roots. Okay, so this right here, notice that it's at x equals negative 1. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right here. X equals negative 1. So I have my axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry. Symmetry is at x equals negative 1, right? Now that I have my x coordinates, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and use this x coordinate to find the y coordinate of my vertex. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and find my vertex. I'm going to move this up a bit. Okay, so I need to find my vertex. My vertex. Now I know that the x coordinate is equal to negative 1, right? So it's going to be negative 1. Negative 1 something, whatever y is. So I want to find, I'm going to use my equation from the very beginning. Okay, and what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to substitute in this value in for x to find the y coordinate. So y equals negative 1 minus 1, negative 1 plus 3. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to use my handy dandy calculator right over here. Okay, so I'm going to put in parentheses, make it look exactly like it is right here, right? I'm going to put two sets of parentheses. And this one's going to be negative 1 minus 1. Right over here is going to be negative 1 plus 3. Notice that the only thing that changed is this x is now a negative 1. and we get that the y coordinate is equal to -4. Okay, so my vertex is -1, -4. So I'm going to go ahead and plot that there. Okay, so -1, -4, 2, 3, 4, right there. Okay, the only thing that I need are my y-intercepts. Okay, so I'm going to find my y-intercepts, or my y-intercept, and that is the value of y when x equals 0. So I'm going to use my quadratic equation right up here, this quadratic, and I'm going to find the value of y when x equals 0. Okay, so y equals 0 minus 1, 0 plus 3, and this is multiplication, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Look, I'm going to change that for a 0. I'm going to change that one for a 0, and we get that y is equal to -3. Okay, so my y-intercept is at 0, -3. I'm going to go ahead and come back up here. 0, -3 is right there. And notice this is 1 unit away from the axis of symmetry. So that means that since these are symmetrical, there's going to be another point right over here. And I'm going to go ahead and connect those. All right, so it should look something like this right here. That's a little bad on my part, right? Right here, kind of messed up, but it should look like that U shape, right? Like that U shape. Now let's go ahead. Let's put all the key features together. Okay, some of the things that I want you to find for these. All right. So this one here, the vertex for this graph, we found that the vertex is -1, -4. Okay, -1, -4. We know that the axis of symmetry, and if you want to abbreviate it, that's fine. Axis of symmetry is at uh, x equals -4. No, excuse me. X equals -1. X equals -1. Okay, x equals -1. Then we have that it opens upwards, right? Upwards. Okay, opens upwards, and we have a minimum. Since it opens up, we have a minimum of -4, -4 at x equals -1. Okay, and my intercepts. Okay, I have a y-intercept. I'm going to abbreviate that one at 0, -3, and x-intercepts at or 1 comma 0 and -3, 0. All right, so that's the first one that we took a look at. Now let's go ahead, and I'm going to pause for a little bit so that way I can go ahead and get the next one ready. All right, let's go ahead and let's take a look at this quadratic here. I have y equals -1/3 times x minus 1, x plus 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at this quadratic. So here I want to go ahead and find the x-intercepts. Okay, that's going to be a given, x-intercepts. Okay, that's the first thing I'm going to find for this one since it's set up for me to already do that. So I'm going to use the zero factor property and set my quadratic equal to 0. Okay, x plus 4 is equal to 0. The zero factor property tells me that if a times b, and in this case c, is equal to 0, then either b is equal to 0 or c is equal to 0. We know that -1/3 cannot equal 0, so we're going to leave that one out for now. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's use the zero factor property that equals 0. X plus 4, that right there equals 0. Add 1 to both sides. These cancel. Subtract 4 from both sides. These cancel. Now let's go ahead. X equals 1 or x equals -4. All right, so my x-intercepts are 1, 0 and -4, 0. So let's go ahead and let's plot those right now. So -4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right over here. All right, and we're at 1, 0. Now, in order to find the axis of symmetry, I need to find halfway between 1, 0 and, or excuse me, -4, 0 and 1, 0. And if I take a look at how many units they are away, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 units away. Okay, so the 5 units away, and if I divide 5 by 2, we get that it is 2.5 units. And so halfway between here and here is right there. So let's go ahead and I'm going to draw it. Okay. And this is my axis of symmetry. X equals, notice that it is -1.5, so -1.5. My axis of symmetry. All right, axis of symmetry. And if you have any questions on how I'm getting some of these values, please email me, leave me a private comment in Google Classroom. That way, I know I can answer you that way. Okay, and I can provide you additional information if you need. Okay. Next, now that I know the x coordinate of my vertex, I'm going to find my vertex. Okay, and I'm going to use again this equation here, this quadratic equation. And in this case here, I'm going to let x equal -1.5. Okay, so y is equal to -1/3 times -1.5 minus 1 times -1.5 plus 4. Okay, and I'm going to use my handy dandy calculator right over here. Okay, so -1/3. Okay, need to make sure that I click out so that way you can see that, so that I don't continue writing in my denominator. It's going to be -1.5 minus 1. Right over here is going to be -1.5 plus 4. Okay, and then we get is 2.083333. I'm going to go ahead and round to 2.08. So my vertex is -1.5, 2.08. Now for you, you just have to estimate where that value is. Okay, so 2.8, we'll say it's like around right here. Okay. Let's find my y-intercepts, right? Let's find my y-intercepts. So my y-intercept is the value of, I'm going to go ahead and use this quadratic again, right? X minus 1, x plus 4. I didn't close my parentheses up here, right? The value of y when x equals 0, right? The value of y when x equals 0. So let's go ahead and do that right over here, 1/3. 0 minus 1, close that, 0 plus 4. All right, let's finish this up. -1/3 minus 1. This is 4. Okay, and what you can go ahead and do is you can just go ahead and substitute in 0. Make sure you change it all. 0 here and 0 there. And we get 1.333, which is equivalent to 1 1/3, which is right there. Okay, and since these are symmetrical, we're going to go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to go ahead and put these together. All right, and all right, have that right there. And we put those together. All right. Oh, I didn't show you guys what I did. Okay. 1 1/3 is right there, 1.333, right? And since they are symmetrical, I also put this point right across the same amount of or the same distance away from the axis of symmetry. Okay. Now that I have that there, I'm going to go ahead and put my key features together. Okay. My vertex, is right here, which is negative 1.5, negative 1.5, 2.08. Okay, so my vertex is negative 1.5208. Close it. All right, axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry. I'm going to abbreviate it. X equals negative 1.5. Negative 1.5. All right, let's finish it up. We have opens down, right? Opens downward, opens down. And since it opens down, in this case we have a maximum, this is the highest point. Maximum, we have a maximum of 2.08 at x equals negative 1.5. And we have our intercepts, okay? We have 0, 1.33 goes on forever. Okay, that's my y-intercept. My x-intercepts are 1, comma 0 and negative 4, comma 0. Close that up. And we have our quadratics with all the key features that we need to find.